the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by Donorbox.
Something about the energy of spring lends itself to new beginnings, and that includes spring cleaning. After a winter's worth of grime and dust, it feels invigorating to deep clean our homes and to begin anew. But what about your nonprofit? Like a typical household, your nonprofit organization has likely collected some cobwebs and dust bunnies over the year. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Cara, fundraising coach at Donorbox. We are here each week with practical actions you can use today to increase donations and take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. So, the age-old tradition of freshening things up after a long winter can be very useful to nonprofits. With the seasons changing, now is the perfect time to take a step back from the day-to-day grind and recalibrate. Take some time to review and refresh. This can make a big difference in how your nonprofit organization works. Maintaining the organization and health of your nonprofit is just as important to the long-term success of your mission as advocacy work and fundraising projects. So today we tackle some budget-friendly, quick must-dos for you this spring that will help you breathe easier and get your organization in tip-top shape. First, get down into your donor data. Now, I like a good data cleanup, but with the exception of those data nerds like me out there, very few of us like to go through and organize data. But good data is essential to success, even if the cleanup seems tedious. And here is why it is oh so important. We talk about this all the time. Fundraising is about relationships. It is all about relationships. And maintaining a clean donor database means you can use your donor's correct name when you're personalizing. It means you're sending to their most recent address, or you know how they last interacted with you. One misstep there can mean a lost donor forever. And here are some things that you can do to help find those things in your database. First, check if the phone numbers and email addresses you have in your database are correct. This is especially important if you've had an influx of address changes. Maybe you've seen some returned mail or bounced email after you've sent your last appeal. And then check for duplicate contacts in your donor data and merge or dedupe those records. Can you segment or tag your contacts somehow in your database? Some recommended filters include tagging new donors or libunts. Those are your donors who donated last year, but unfortunately not yet this year. That's an acronym, libunts. Maybe you can tag your major donors or your monthly donors. So use these lists to better tailor your communications. Then add in some new relevant information into your donor database, like event attendances or volunteering, and always think of the person behind the donor record. No donor wants to see their name misspelled or receive 3 mailings because you have duplicate records for them in your data. You can send a survey to your donors and add their responses to their donor profile so that you can continue to better personalize your communication to them. Okay, our first must-do was data hygiene. Now let's talk about how to fine-tune some processes. Taking the time now to check on processes with your team can be really helpful. Having these processes in order and part of your routine is just one more way to shore up those good fundraising processes so that you're in really good shape this year and in good shape for anything that comes your way. So what processes are important? Well, there are a ton, there are so many, but I want to talk about 3 today. 3 easy ones that you can tackle right now, right after this podcast. Let's talk about how you receive donations, how you receipt donations, and how you acknowledge donations. Having streamlined processes for these can really be a time saver for you. So first, are you ready to receive donations? Processing donations and gift entry can take an investment of time, but when they're done efficiently, they can make acknowledging and reporting easier on the back end. And each organization processes donations differently, but there are some common processing practices that are helpful to any organization. So I have them listed here, and if you want to answer these along with me, can you do these things? Yes or no? So here they are. Okay. Can you easily identify who made a donation? Does your donor database show you your list of donors? Can you identify what type of donation was given? So whether it was a credit card, cash, a check, was it an in-kind donation or a gift of stock? Can you tell that by looking at your donor data? Okay, can you identify the amount of the donation easily? Can you identify when the donation was made, the date that it came in through your doors? Can you tell where the gift should be directed? Should it be directed to a particular fund or a campaign? Make sure that that is recorded in your donor data. And then, is there more than one person on your team who can also find these things? If you were to go on an extended leave, could someone find what they needed to? So if you have more yeses than nos to those, you're in great shape. And if you have more nos, that's okay. Dig in and work on these. Work with them with your team. Work in your data and get a system in place. How did you do? Okay, that was at receiving donations. So next, let's talk about receipts and acknowledgments. And I have a little quiz for you. True or false, receipts and acknowledgments are the same. Well, are they? They are not. So I often use the analogy of a grocery store receipt versus a note to your favorite aunt. When you go to a store and purchase items, you receive a receipt. It's very transactional. It has the date of the purchase, it lists what you purchased and your total amount. And conversely, let's say your favorite aunt sent you a sweater for your birthday, and you would write a nice, warm thank you note saying, dear Auntie, thank you for remembering me on my birthday. The sweater you sent really made me feel loved and appreciated, and I will wear it all the time. See, there's a big difference there, and I encourage you to use this analogy to test your outgoing stewardship communication from your organization. A donation receipt is like that grocery store receipt. It's transactional. It's a proof of a contribution or a proof of a transaction. And an acknowledgement is a really great way to say thank you. As you write your favorite aunt, you would never say, Dear Auntie, thank you for the sweater you sent on January 2nd, valued at $49.97. You would never say those things. And so when you are writing your acknowledgments, don't include that information either. Leave it for the receipt. As we talk about receipts, nonprofit organizations typically issue donation receipts when the donation is made, along with a year-end comprehensive receipt for tax purposes. And here are some common receipt functions that may apply to your organization. Again, answer yes or no. A donor making an online contribution receives a receipt immediately after submitting the donation. Yes or no? The online donation receipt includes the date, time, and amount of the donation. The online receipt contains appropriate tax-deductible information if that applies to your organization. Is the receipt personalized with the donor's name? The receipt conveys appreciation and the impact of the donor's gift in a warm tone. And a big one here, I have proofread my donation receipt for readability and grammar. How did you do this time? Were there more yeses than nos, or was it the other way around? I mentioned that receipts are transactional, but your receipts don't have to be impersonal and boring like a grocery store. You can add a ton of customization to make your receipt the best possible in Donorbox. All right, next, let's talk a little bit more about the importance of my favorite process, acknowledgments. The way you say thank you to donors could be the most important communication you do as a nonprofit organization. How you recognize donors' generosity plus your plan to keep them engaged with your organization will often mean the difference between a one-time gift and long-term support. It is oh so important to express gratitude for every single donation you receive, regardless of the amount, but you must also communicate the connection between the donor's act of giving, and the success that the mission of the organization is operating with when donors give. So use your words to express gratitude, plus convey how the money will make the mission move. Remember, the receipt is transactional and your acknowledgement is relational. So here are a few yes or no questions about acknowledgements. So I understand the difference between a receipt and an acknowledgement. I hope at this point you do. Yes, right? My organization has identified who will be responsible for sending regular, prompt, and personal acknowledgments. If you haven't, make sure that you do that. My team understands that acknowledgments are important to donor stewardship and retention. And last one, my organization has a standard acknowledgement for sending appreciation after a donation is received. Well, these are some best practices for acknowledgments. They're the how, but I want to spend a little bit and focus on the why. Do you know why these tips are important? Well, fewer Americans are giving. We know this from a lot of data and a lot of research. And those who are donating are supporting fewer causes than they did just a few years ago. And good donor communication fosters a good giving experience and really makes your organization stand out. Over the years, fundraisers have been so much better with applying these best practices. They're turning around acknowledgments a little more quickly. They're personalizing them. But some recent research found that 80% of acknowledgments are still starting with, "On behalf of the Board of Trustees," or "Thank you for your generous gift." They're starting out with some predictable and boring openers, so try to recapture what the donor was feeling when they made the gift. And as you work through creating your acknowledgments, I really challenge you to try to create an opening line that begins with something that doesn't even have the phrase "thank you" in it. We have some sample acknowledgments for you in the Donorbox blog, and we'll be sure to link those for you in the show notes. And as we talk about acknowledgments, acknowledge is a very important A in our cycle of the 5 A's of awesome fundraising. We talked about that on a podcast episode a few episodes ago. And if you want to learn more about the 5 A's of awesome fundraising, we'll leave a resource for you in the show notes. But the big point is, when you do the other A's well, when you're acknowledging, when you are showing accountability for donations, when you're attracting people to your organization and continuing that conversation again and again, the ask often comes easy. So be sure to really build up your acknowledgments as part of your fundraising strategy in your organization. So you know how house cleaning and organizing projects sometimes seem a little worse the longer you put them off, right? And they really tend to weigh on our minds day after day, but it really feels amazing once we get them done. And the same really goes for your nonprofit spring cleaning. Take time to clean up your data. Remember that good data leads to better relationships and better fundraising. Then look at your processes. What can you tighten up in your receiving, receipting, and acknowledging? I say put on your comfy clothes and take on your nonprofit cleaning as soon as you can. You'll be really happy once it's done. A strong organizational base ensures that you will continue to serve your community and your mission for many years to come. Did you know how grateful we are for you? You have a lot going on, and I just want to say thank you for choosing to spend time with the Nonprofit Podcast. I hope you've left with confidence to take a small step today that will make a big difference tomorrow. Don't forget to download and review the podcast or give it a thumbs up if you're listening to the Nonprofit Podcast on YouTube. Your review is a great way to help others to find us. You're here to help others, and we're here to help you. So until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is Donorbox, helping you help others.